This
So
conference
the
will
intent
now
of,
be recorded.
thank you, Kayla. And maybe you could put up the slide and we'll share screen with them. Okay, good. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide feedback on the survey results from the survey we did for the downtown revitalization for accessibility, streetscape, and community space project improvements. Go to the next slide. The purpose or the goals of this meeting tonight is to review the survey results, discuss the community action plan, downtown Dundalk projects, community feedback, and we're going to be sharing actually the verbal feedback, what I would call unfeathered. I mean, it's unadjusted. It's straight from what they put in there, and we copied it into this presentation. We're going to discuss options to improve the survey conflicts, which there are some conflicts between building accessibility, parking trade-off, and Proton Street traffic flow one way versus two lanes, and discuss funding opportunities to invest in downtown Dundalk or not. The next slide is the first question in the survey, and that was strictly about business accessibility to those buildings on Proton Street that have those challenges. We did fix up some of the accessibility challenges on Main Street that we could with the Main Street East construction project. And so we brought this proposal forward because we think that needs to be addressed or give the opportunity to address that issue on Proton Street where we're seeing that this funding is available. So the business accessibility of 15 surveys, 11 said they were agreed or said yes to this question, where 4 said they were undecided. Nobody disagreed with it, so that's a pretty solid feedback. 73% agreeing. The new sidewalks, as far as the discussion here was asking the question about, how did you feel about where there had to be accessibility improvements, that there be 2 levels of sidewalks, the street level sidewalk and then the accessibility grade changes to get into other buildings. 53% agreed with that feedback, 8 out of 15, 5 disagreed, and 2 were undecided. Next slide. So the next question was about downtown Dundalk and outdoor commerce. And again, some pretty solid feedback that they supported that kind of use of sidewalk for outdoor commerce for business owners. And so it was 87% agreed with that, and 13% were undecided, with no one disagreeing. So then we asked the question about downtown Dundalk, a local farmers market, and this was strictly, so I'll maybe recap there. All the surveys, and I'll stand corrected, was pretty much from downtown business owners, except for one was from a farmer that we took that, and that did slant things a little bit, but so be it. And a business that I wouldn't call it downtown, but they are involved in the downtown area of the business section. So 67% agreed that there'd be benefits from the farmers market being positive to downtown business attraction to bring more people into Dundalk. 20% or 3 said they disagreed with it, and 2 were undecided. Next slide. So a gathering place for downtown Dundalk. It was overwhelming that they felt that the strategy and the community action plan, felt that we should create an attraction or events and parades downtown to attract people. And so 12 agreed, 1 disagreed, and 2 were undecided. Proton Street look related to traffic flow. So the question specifically was, do you support closing part or all of Proton Street to vehicular traffic? 2 agreed, 11 disagreed, or 73%, and two were undecided. So I think the support there is overwhelming that they don't want to close the traffic 100%. But anyway, we'll go to the next one, and I think we then get into more the question of one and two-way traffic. So this one is about, do you support reducing Proton Street to one-way traffic? Again, a slight increase in the yeses to 3. 10 were no, 67% no, and 2 were undecided. The next question was quite similar, and we didn't get responses to that. So next slide, please. This is related to Proton Street parking. Do you support reducing parking on Proton Street and increasing parking as an upgrade project on the east side? 46% agreed with that, 4 disagreed, and 4 were undecided. Future Proton Street parking, as far as working with Grey County and future parking, maybe in the medical center parking lot, 87% were agreed with we need to expand parking. 0 disagreed and 2 were undecided. Next slide, please. So again, this was going in for a deeper dive into it and agreeing that they wanted even more parking with the Lions Medical Center expanding in there. Rear entrances to businesses, there was quite a split here, a 3-way split between yes, no, and undecided, but this was really promoting the idea of allowing people to enter onto Main Street, or onto Proton Street, I should say, through the rear of a business. And we'll get into the discussion. There were some very valid whys the vote was split. They didn't have staff to monitor another entrance and so on, but we'll get into that discussion later. And the last one, the next slide is nothing really to do with tonight's discussion, other than we did have a survey question on there about the CIP, Community Improvement Plan, and 8 people liked the plan or agreed with it, 2 disagreed, and 5 were undecided. So that tells me we got a bit more work to do to really educate our business people and the community on what the CIP is all about. The next slide, we get right into some pretty straight up comments, and I think we'd be fooling ourselves if we hid these under a rock. But these are comments that we took right from the survey. So these are business owners downtown, and I think to do them justice, we'll go through each one of them. The downtown has become a dump, and it's an eyesore. Pretty straight shot. In my opinion, the major issue is empty and derelict buildings in the downtown. Customers are telling him that the downtown is sad and empty. We need to take pride in our rural community and make Dundalk a great spot once again. I have ranked, so this is a comment more about how they did their analysis of the survey. I have ranked priority areas based on what impacts our business in particular, but really all items are very worthy of consideration. Next point was currently does not see tourism possible in Dundalk, however, would love to see tourism developed. Dundalk definitely needs to have some industry to help revitalize the downtown area and to get rid of the new, to get the new people moving to town to support local. Is glad to hear that we are working on it, and working on it as downtown improvement was the intent of the was where the comment came from. We have to start thinking about outside the box. We need some grandiose visions. The concern is the buildings on Main Street and Proton Street on the west side of the street, which I labeled under adaptive reuse commercial buildings. I think we'll need to think about that comment and try and figure out what's being said there, but fair comment. Current building owners need to maintain the buildings and be encouraged to seek businesses to move in. Empty storefronts over a year period should be incentivized to lease their units. It would be smart to remember that there are thriving businesses on Main Street, not just Proton Street. And I think there was a little bit of, and I'm not calling anybody out on that comment, but the way I took it was there's a bit of jealousy that we're investing in Proton Street, but I think maybe they're forgetting that we did put a lot of money on Main Street, redoing Main Street, the crosswalk, the sidewalks, and the servicing. So, we believe that this is just investing in Proton Street to bring it up to that same kind of level or better. Next slide, please. So this slide gets into the comments we received about accessibility specifically, and kind of those Proton Street comments. So related to accessibility, I support the concept of accessibility changes, but it would depend on the overall plan. Accessibility is a great concern, but we cannot be taking away parking space. One elevated sidewalk only, similar to a boardwalk. So those were the comments there. Proton Street, I'm opposed to complete Proton Street closure, prefer two-way traffic, but would consider one way from Maine to Holland if the design was right and did not come to the detriment of those businesses already established on Proton Street. Next comment, I personally don't agree to reducing or closing traffic onto Proton Street. Afraid one-way traffic would hurt business. I would prefer that Proton Street remains two ways. If Proton Street has to be one way, option 2 is preferred to option 1. Does not want the road closed, trying to keep business on Proton Street. Too many kids playing on other streets, and it is a concern for trucks. That's all one comment there, so I'll say it again. Does not want road closed, trying to keep business on Proton Street. Too many kids playing on other streets, and it is a concern for trucks. So I think there's something that can be read into that, but I think it's concerning maybe that we do have heavy trucks even on Proton Street. There's likely other ways that we can create access for them to get to their business too. Next slide, please. So this slide is entirely about parking. A lot of comments here. Parking is the biggest concern. Drive-by traffic important. We have hard enough time getting people to come downtown to shop or support the businesses, and if there is no convenient parking, they're not going to support the businesses. Parking for takeout, temporary close for market, but not block businesses. Biggest concern was more parking for apartments and takeout. Like the patio in the front, as long as it does not interfere with takeout parking. They do like the patio in the back as well. Rail trail parking for employee parking. Next one is the parking on the east side definitely needs to be paved, parked, and more lighting installed. Okay, so that's referring to the east side behind the credit union, CIBC, and the new drugstore salon. Parking also seems to be an issue on Main Street. Most of the tenants park in front of the businesses, making it hard for people to access the businesses. Parking shortages is a concern. I support keeping the existing parking in front of the hardware store. I support more parking off Proton Street. Not sure on the parking because it can go both ways. Right now, not that busy and can be accommodated on the street. Just an observation. But if things get fixed up, the future, then that may change. The parking spots on Main Street are very large, and there should be more parking. Definitely a parking lot somewhere. One of the biggest problems with parking, in my opinion, is tenants who live above our stores and business owners themselves who take up street parking day and night. If we can afford to enforce street parking, then the very least put parking signs up customer parking only 9 to 6. So some pretty strong comments in relation to parking. Next slide. So there were some comments received about rear property business entrances, because that was something we suggested as to facilitate, parking closer to businesses, or rear parking closer to businesses. I don't think entering businesses from the back alley ways is an option. Many businesses only have 1 or 2 people working, and multiple entryways would be too much and a great safety concern. Besides, that is where the businesses are supposed to keep their garbage bins, not on Main Street in front of the buildings. Next point, besides that is where the businesses are supposed to keep their garbage bins, not on Main Street in front of their buildings. Sorry, that was a repeat. Copy paste works well. Concerns that 2 entrances could lead to shoplifting. Again, I think that goes back to the number of people that's working in the store. But I mean, I think this is one that is just more something I think we can suggest and maybe very beneficial for some businesses and may not be for others. Some comments about events. Could the street be closed only for a few days a year to accommodate festivals, etc.? Community events to build community and draw businesses use parkette. The farmers market would be a great asset to downtown Dundalk in the parkette area, or if needed, the closed Proton Street for that short time each week. Temporary closure of Proton Street for events on weekends only. Use parking lots for events and gathering area, not the street. Next slide. Farmers market discussion. Could a vacant lot or the parkette be used as a gathering place for farmers market instead? I'm concerned there's not enough space for vehicles belonging to farmers market vendors if the farmers market was to, I guess, be on the sidewalk. Some other comments we received regarding the affordable, that these were comments that were just kind of general nature, really didn't fit there, but we put them in because we wanted everybody to see what the comments we received. So regarding the affordable housing in Dundalk, that is a great idea, but definitely not a rooming house. I don't feel anyone ever really takes the pride of ownership with them. Garbage behind the building needs to be cleaned up and the grass needs to be cut. Who cares about Proton Street? What about a vision for the town as a whole? The single most important overriding question should be, how do we increase the tax base of Southgate? What macro view will best accomplish this? What do you want Dundalk to look like in the 20 years, 15 years, 10 years? And what do and how do we get there? Incentives to attract new businesses. And the next one is giving Main Street, Proton Street business owners printed friendly reminders on the township letterhead that could be put on car windows would also be a big help. I don't know what that message is, but anyway, that was a comment. And there's another one here. The last one is, in my view, most if not all the questions are at best myopic and at worst missing the point completely. So anyway, there's some questions there, comments there that I think are very important, to the whole project review. But some we're going to have to maybe brainstorm to try and dig it a little deeper in those. Community action plan. I just want to review those again for tonight. That there's a considerable number of, I think there's about 8 goals or more in relation to revitalizing downtown. Main Street project was one which we've completed, and the Main West will be is targeted for 2026 out to Ida Street from Proton Street. The CIP was completed, and that's been approved and it's in place. We just likely need to do more rollout according to this survey. The vacancy tax rebate, that policy's been changed, and we have hired a fire prevention officer to conduct inspections, and that will start quite vigorously when we kind of get out of this COVID phase we're in right now. 2E, and that's the one that really kind of takes the deeper dive into downtown, and this feedback was really from the entire community, and looking at what downtown should look like, from likely more so feedback from community leaders and community members just at large, because we survey, or we had our consultant talk to community groups and community members and the business section. So this was feedback that we received, that downtown we should increase investment there to make it a place for community events, festivals, parades, library activities, and other events to attract people to downtown. The next one is get the chamber going again. We believe that's really important, and that could act as a downtown revitalization advisory committee, or at least members of the chamber would be involved in doing that to give guidance long term, not just a short term fix, but what we're going to do if we do a project like this, if it goes ahead. Next slide, please. So the last 2 points are just installing prominent signage. We got red funding signage, and we're in the process of much of that. Those items have been ordered, and we should be getting them sometime later in June. Meeting discussions in relation to downtown murals. I think that'll be a discussion for the chamber as to what should we be doing with these murals. Should we invest more into them, or scrap them, or just find out if there's value to the murals that we have in town, because we are having some challenges with one mural that even trying to get access to it. So anyway, next slide is a look back at specifically Initiative 2E related to that downtown improvement, or downtown and community events, festivals, and so on. What do we need to consider to achieve this specific initiative? So I think the first point we make here is make downtown buildings on Proton Street accessible. That, if we're going ahead, that is definitely, and it shows in the survey is something that needs to be considered. Improve the appearance of the streetscape and boardwalk areas for outdoor commerce, trees, flower boxes, banners, benches, and rest areas. Create an outdoor space for community events and develop a mall effect. Obviously, that has further discussion to make that happen. There's definitely some major conflicts in this survey results, in that if we're going to make buildings accessible, we can't just have the same sidewalk space that we had before, 2 lanes of traffic and 2 lanes of parking. So something would have to give there. And then if you move, outdoor events or community events to parking lot, then you're taking away from parking lot. So there's a bit of give and take that's going to have to happen as we make decisions going through this process. Definitely, there was discussion about creating that outdoor space. I think they felt that was valuable, and create that mall effect. But increased downtown parking was definitely resonated as a common theme. And I think somehow we need to reconsider that downtown parking, that when you think about going to shopping in larger centers, you walk a considerable way from your car to get to that store. And I think if we create that downtown attraction, there'll be less and less concern about walking from a parking lot to get to downtown, and put less value on parking in front of stores and so on, and more value in being able to access, maybe pick up at the back of the store if that's required. But making shorter term parking, accessible parking downtown on the streets, I think is important to get those people with disability challenges to the store. But you don't hear anyone complain about walking, a considerable distance to get to Walmart. And I think if we create downtown as an attractive place that people want to come for events and farmers market and shopping and so on, those kind of things can be overlooked with the right feel. And I think the last thing is that we should consider rerouting larger truck traffic to, say, Dundalk Street for public safety rather than have it downtown. Next slide. So this, just want to kind of revisit the parking now. This is a rendering that we shared last time of the east side parking, which would create considerably more parking than what I would call the haphazard approach that's there now. The parking lot would be lined. There is some area here that would, I think there it is right there, is for access to deliveries to the new pharmacy, but there can still be considerable parking, and part of that whole thing too is re-upping an agreement with the credit union to continue that parking relationship. Next slide. And last time we talked about parking on the rail trail corridor, and that's something we could definitely look at with the County of Grey to redesign and make that area back there much more attractive, and not have things like garbage dumpsters and construction trailers and all kinds of unnecessary things back there. Get that stuff moved out and create an actual organized parking area, and then develop long-term, getting into using the Lions Club Medical Center parking lot too for future parking development. So next slide. So to address these, I would say, conflicts within the survey results is, because there was overwhelming support or considerable support for building accessibility and sidewalk area, we'd have to go through a rationalization that we'd have to give up something, and one of those could be one-way traffic and or parking on one side of Proton Street. One or the other would have to go to accomplish building accessibility. To create outdoor public spaces for social events and outdoor commerce, one-way traffic and parking on one side of Proton Street would have to go. So we could likely maintain one-way traffic flow and one side of the street for parking, but I don't think both would be possible. But those are kind of discussions that would need to continue. The closure of Proton Street for events comes with access to parking lot challenges, but this could be a consideration, to work around some of these other concerns. When it comes to increased parking lot spaces, like we need to finish that parking lot on the east side and re-up with the credit union parking lot agreement that we have and do that in 2021. So we make sure that gets completed and increases parking like they're looking for. Create an agreement with Grey County for parking development on the rail trail, and create a defined roadway for the trail and any kind of vehicular traffic that would go up and down that alley. Develop more parking in the present medical center parking lot off Dundalk Street, and that would happen in future years. And we could also connect that parking to the rail trail parking area. And the last thing that kind of come through is that we definitely need policy and bylaw enforcement for that long-term apartment and employee parking areas. We need to define those and not allow them to park on Main Street or Proton Street, where it should be for business owners as well, or sort of for business customers, and try and get the point across, I think, through the chamber discussions that, let's work together and park in appropriate places. Like if business owners can't park out back behind, how do you expect your customers to maybe park out behind and give access? So next slide is basically an overview of the project funding that we could apply for. And so that has to be a decision made by council on June the 16th as whether we're going to go ahead and how we do that. And is there enough direction and feedback from the survey to say this should be done, and then figure out how we're going to do it to make, and I'm not going to say we're going to make everyone happy, but to address some of those comments that we're making it a place and making it that it's more attractive and a place that somebody would want to come to do business, locate a business, do business, or just hang out at some event downtown. Next slide. So this is the last slide, and it's really about what are the next steps. So I've talked a little bit about that, but a council decision on the application submission. And so the real question is do we continue discussions and create a chamber of commerce to create change in downtown Dundalk, or are we gonna, just let it, I guess, create itself? But we think this is an opportunity for money to allow a pretty quick change in downtown and create a new face, because obviously with some of the comments received, some of the business owners aren't even proud of downtown themselves. So we need to make that change and cut that cycle of frustration. So if we proceed and receive funding approval, Southgate will need to have public discussions on the sidewalk, the street design changes that will be required to complete the project through dialogue, consensus, and majority support. That would, look at renderings and engineer design concepts that would try and accomplish what we're looking for, and hopefully serve everyone as best possible. Discussion and questions. Does anybody have any questions based on that presentation?
I got one, Dave. It's Brett here.
Yes.
I mean, there's lots of ideas out there to move ahead with and stuff, right? And lots of them are kind of working. There's a lot of ideas out there that were kind of on both sides. I don't think you can do all of them. You can't make the back nice and the front less. You can't do certain things there, right? So just certain things like that. I mean, most of the improvement of the look of town is still the corner building, which nobody here is from that building, right? So that one's going to be a hard one to fix, as we know. I'm not sure what we do with accessibility. I think if we could get it, that'd be great. I'm not sure what we are willing to give up. That's the real trick of it all to me, is coming up with what will work and what won't. That's all.
Yep. No, and those are points that I think come very clear from the survey feedback, is the conflict between losing parking and gaining accessibility and creating a place downtown to attract more people. Those are all challenges, some conflict with one another. So it's going to have to be a bit of a give and take. But I think if we start with parking and address those parking issues and make it that the business, and I'm not talking about business people in this call, because I think everybody here, you see where you guys park, but that everybody respects parking places in front of any business, that you just don't plunk a car for 24 hours in front of a busy business. And so I think, the creating more parking places downtown is a net positive. Creating some policy in relation to parking. Somebody mentioned on here about plates in parking lots that don't even have a sticker or don't have a plate. We need to, up our game on that bylaw enforcement kind of stuff and just tow them and get the point across.
Yeah,
But
I mean, and parking, Dave, I mean, I'm not for the community space. It's not for me, but if you do that, you've increased your time for every customer that if you want them to go hang out there, you need 10 times as much parking now. Because you've just invited them to stay for 3 hours, which would be great, but now you need them somewhere to park.
yeah, and not
So,
necessarily everybody, like a lot of the people that will attend these things will walk, or because we do have active transportation ways to get
yep,
to a lot of places now. So bicycle or whatever, but we years ago we had lots of attendees at the theaters and so on. So that would be to me a great problem to have and to have to deal with.
yeah.
I think some of these things, I think, if everything was just up a bit, I mean, as they say, as the tide rises, it lifts everybody. So that's the kind of spirit here. But I mean, there has to be buy-in. I mean, the township is looking at, investing considerable amount of money, and we put the CIP out there to try and improve things. We're not going to improve every storefront, but in time, everyone that does is going to force the next guy into doing something with whether it's facade improvements or so on. But when you hear some of the comments from business owners that they're not even proud of their downtown, because I think to be proud of downtown, every business has to be doing well and be successful. We can't have turnover, and I think we're in a prime time right now with the growth of residential, the growth of industrial, commercial that we're seeing. Just one at a time is all it's going to take to keep, improving things. And we have a lot of business activity going on right now that we'll be announcing in the next few months that we're going to bring more jobs and more investment. And with the Common Ground starting up right now, and sorry. Terry, am I right with that? Common Ground, correct? Yes. Common Ground with the coffee ground idea. So that young lady's going to bring a breath of fresh air to downtown, and it's just going to take one at a time to do what we can to improve it. As far as the corner on Poten Street, we're doing some things there that to bring that property into compliance, and we'll continue to work on that. But you can only do so much, and eventually something will happen there too.
Yep. No, and that's what I mean. You can't fix it overnight. We know that.
No, for sure.
Trying to change it up to make something completely new is definitely a risk, and some will love it and some will not, right? So
Yep.
trying to find something that will work.
Change is very, very hard well, it's hard to make happen, but it's also hard to get buy-in from everybody, and we get that. But if this is something, we got to start somewhere, somehow, because it's been quite a while, being difficult. And now that we've got the investments we're having in Southgate and Dundalk specifically, this is a prime time to reap the rewards from that new business. Any other questions or comments, or would you like to say anything, John?
Well, just that, a lot of good points with things, but to me, the bottom line is us doing something together to the township to do its part in fixing up and making Proton Street and the whole downtown just that little bit better, and see if we can't help the businesses out and do things. So for me, that's the key. And you know, this open dialogue as we go, that's really important, that we hear what everybody has to say and try and work towards it. And we've got to get the public to buy in the end as well, to get down there and shop more and be more involved. So to me, that's what it's about, is you know, us getting involved and trying to help pick things up a little bit and make the downtown more vibrant, so that long term be there and still functioning.
Well, I hope with the new pharmacy, we could really make a difference. I feel like the investment we're putting in could attract other businesses and could bring a lot of people into the downtown who may not have gone there before. So we are really hoping that could initiate other businesses to come.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Peter. And looking forward to, I look at the hole in the ground there often, so I'm looking forward to seeing some walls.
They're moving pretty quickly, faster than I can keep up. So
Good.
With the new pharmacy coming in place, it'll probably guilt some of the other businesses to try and keep up the pace too. And as far as the sidewalk on Croton Street, I still think a wider raised sidewalk would help with your accessibility issues. There's only one or two buildings that would be below grade, but a slightly raised sidewalk that's lots wide would probably solve all your accessibility to all the stores on Croton Street.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thinking. You know, at the same time, the safety aspect of the sidewalk, the maintenance and all that sort of thing has to be taken into account too.
Wasn't that one of the reasons we've always had this issue, Dave? Is because doing something even like our idea, maintenance is going to be, it's still going to be a problem. Blowing snow in the winter on sidewalks will not be a lot of fun, I'm sure.
No, and you're not going to be able to. So those raised sidewalks is going to have some place to blow that snow onto. So that's why you'd have to have a lower sidewalk to blow it onto, so it can be then removed. A one level sidewalk wouldn't get it done, because we can't get up there with the equipment necessary to get it out of there. So anyway. Any other comments? We may, well, we're running short on time and making a decision. We'll take this to council to see their input. I mean, the feedback definitely points in the direction of dealing with parking, and it definitely points in the direction of people thinking that we need to address accessibility thing. Like, the one thing is if we don't address accessibility and help businesses address it now, when it comes to 2025 and they have to, I don't know how it could be done off property. I don't see folks emptying their store for 6 months and lowering their floor to ground to sidewalk level. That's not going to happen. Plus, it would be far too costly. I think a consideration needs to be for those businesses that have this challenge. You know, we're giving them a pretty affordable solution without much investment to do that. But again, that's the whole challenge with getting this project done, is the conflict between parking, traffic flow, and so on. But
Is that still the feeling that they're going to mandate that to make it mandatory?
They've been talking about 2025 as requirement for accessibility for years.
Yeah. I just wondered if that's still on the go with, they're encouraging online shopping more than ever now. So I wondered if that had kind of taken away from that.
There has been, for sure, the online shopping is an outcome of COVID, and it
Yeah.
likely will continue. But before COVID, I mean, even churches were doing a lot of, looking at how they're going to make their facilities accessible. And I mean, in some cases, it's almost impossible. But anyway, there has been nothing through the COVID discussions that accessibility requirements will change, because there's so much study and information out there that says that you will increase your business activity and flow in your stores or your business by being an accessible business and having people with disabilities of any kind, whether it's a communicative or moving, mobile disabilities, that you will increase your business by having that capacity. Any other comments? So I guess if you want to just say anything on closing, John. So we're taking a report to council for June 16th, and that will be decide how we proceed or whether we proceed on this project. If there's any comments coming out of this beyond your survey that you want to make, send them to the mayor or myself or the clerk or Terry Murphy, our economic development officer, and verbalize those. And we'll definitely include them in the process. We're expecting a few more surveys to come in. We had hoped that there'd be more participation, but we're anticipating likely 18 when we're all said and done, because there's 3 more have committed to finishing theirs this week. And with that, I'll just turn it over to John on closing.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone for participating. And if this does go through, this is just the start of our discussions. This is kind of the way I'd like to go if we proceed with this, is that we're open and discussing the issues as we go and trying to come up with solutions together. And so, like I say, thanks for input, because that's what's going to make things work.
Good. So unless there's anything else, we'll adjourn this meeting, and thank you for coming. It's good to see this number of people out and on the call. So good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.